Joining us now is Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Senate Finance Committee. Senator, thank you very much for joining us tonight. The outcome with the oil markets was one of the predictable effects of this war, but Donald Trump seems to have been taken by surprise by it.
Yeah, and the two big winners from this big surprise that he was the only person not to see are his big oil billionaire cronies who've seen the price of their product go through the roof. One of the things that's notable is that American oil producers who are selling oil to Americans raise their prices when foreign issues change the international oil market. Their cost of production hasn't changed, so they're going to make a fortune. And of course, the other big winner is Vladimir Putin, who is winning not only because Trump released him from sanctions so that he can get more revenue. Oil prices are up, so the spigot of money to keep his war machine against Ukraine going is flipped wide open. And the arms that we have been providing to Ukraine are now being spent in Iran, and that lowers the overall supply, throw in other needs. And I'm sure we'll shortly see Hegseth and others saying, well, we'd love to help Ukraine, but we simply don't have the war material any longer. So Putin's number one goal has been to succeed at annexing Ukraine by violence. And he's also the one person in the world to whom President Trump insists on showing submissiveness, and not try to be the dominant person in the relationship. He's the submissive in this relationship. So there is pain all around economically from the decision Trump evidently didn't see the consequences of, except in those two corners of Trump allies.
So Donald Trump spent some time on the phone with Vladimir Putin today. What could that possibly have been about?
Yeah, nothing good for Ukraine, just to begin with. And as you know, there is a long connection between Trump and Russia. Trump likes to call it the Trump-Russia hoax. But as you know better than anyone, Lawrence, when Trump uses the word hoax, it's his verbal tell for something that is absolutely true. So Trump-Russia has been a long standing thing. We do not fully understand it yet. There's also a Russia-Epstein connection that we don't fully understand yet, which makes Trump-Russia and Trump-Epstein more of a complicated triangle of Trump, Russia, Epstein. But I would be very interested to know what took place in that conversation between him and President Putin. Nothing good for Ukraine, I'm sure.
So Donald Trump never announced either an objective or a timeline at the beginning of his war, which seems to leave it open to him to decide exactly when his war ends, which might mean that the stock market will tell him when his war ends.
Yeah, I think it's become his style to try to play things fast and loose and keep everybody guessing, which is fine if you are, running a casino or selling yourself as a TV host on an entertainment show. But when you've got the reputation of the United States, when you've got the lives of American service members, and when you've got massive economic consequences for American families all on the line, you'd like to think that he would have put the effort in to thinking it through a little bit.
And as we go forward, Donald Trump's notion of unconditional surrender, I'm sure he'll never bring it up again, and it'll just be forgotten. But he obviously has no idea what that even looks like. But we're certainly not any closer to that impossible dream after the new leadership choice in Iran.
No, in fact, Iran has had an enormous amount of destruction wreaked on its traditional military apparatus. There's no doubt about that. But clearly the spirit of the Iranian extremists has not been broken when they put the Ayatollah's even more aggressive and conservative son in as his replacement. There's no sign of looking unconditionally surrendering there. And they have operatives all around the world. They have drone technology that is very inexpensive. And believe it or not, there's been news reporting by the Washington Post that Vladimir Putin, the Russians, have been helping the Iranians target American service members. I wonder if that came up in the conversation between Trump and Putin, that Putin is actually helping Iran kill our service members. Ordinarily, that would be the kind of thing that would irritate an American president, maybe even anger him, maybe even put some real pressure on Putin to knock it off. But whatever he has on Putin, that has not happened.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, thank you very much for starting off our discussions tonight.
Thank you.